What I'm about to say is said with love to my IT manager brothers and sisters out there. And remember, we're in this together. It's just you and I talking right now. You and your users' personal smartphone sign-in security that uses biometrics, PIN codes, and passkeys is far more secure than your company WindowsOS laptops that are connected to Windows Server domain controllers, using usernames that are easy to guess and passwords that never change or are required to change routinely or have crazy complexity and length requirements and are unrepeatable, requiring users to write down their passwords, sometimes on paper, half-heartedly hidden near the computer or in their own personal smartphones, which you don't have any security control over. All of this ultimately making your overall IT security posture far less secure, and it's so outdated. At the time of this video, Microsoft is a $3 trillion company, the world's most valuable company with over 200,000 global employees, clearly in the business of IT security. And you use their IT security technology daily. Do they have these legacy password policies? Is this part of their best practices? Do they even use passwords? Absolutely not. And they haven't for a long time. I remember attending a Microsoft tech conference 7 years ago, and they were talking about how they don't use passwords internally. And I'm still blown away how routinely I meet with IT managers describing this legacy security configuration from the 1990s as their current configuration. And even crazier is some of them are so reluctant to give up this antiquated security posture. But at least these are IT managers that sense something needs to change. Suspect they aren't fully utilizing their Microsoft 365 licenses and are actually talking to me. You have multi-factor authentication for your Microsoft 365 account, for your cloud apps around sales, finance, and operations, and for your personal smartphone, for accessing your bank through the web, or literally getting your cash from an ATM machine. The multi-factor authentication being the physical card, something you have, and a 4 to 6 digit PIN code, which is something you know. And we're going to come back to that humble, simple PIN code protecting everyone's cash later on. For now, just keep this concept in your head. Your bank is completely comfortable with protecting access to your cash, as well as all of its customers' cash using two-factor authentication with a physical card and non-complex, non-changing, humble 4 to 6 digit PIN codes. And keep in mind, I've spoken to hundreds of you on this subject over many years. So before you click off and start typing in the comments, I'll invite you to hang in there with me for just a little bit longer. So why don't you have MFA for your WindowsOS computers on your company computer network? And more specifically for company laptops, which is all companies purchase anymore. Nobody's buying desktop computers. Everybody has laptops. And for good reason. Going to all laptops is basic business continuity planning. So that if we ever have another pandemic or some other type of thing making the office not available, or we have a hybrid work at the office, work from home schedule, we have a computer or a laptop that works the same anywhere we take it. That's good IT management policy. That's modern IT management policy. That's good business. 99% of the computers we sold to our clients before, during, and after the pandemic are laptops, which is the way it should be. But business continuity is not the focus of this video. The focus of this video is practical, modern, cost-effective, scalable IT security of your Windows OS laptops using Microsoft 365 XDR. Those laptops are floating around everywhere. At homes, at hotels, at airports, through all sorts of public Wi-Fi connections, outside of your firewalls, outside of your company computer network. And they're usually not even encrypted. For those of you that have legacy Windows Server domains with domain joined computers, which is most of you when I speak with you, why are you still using single factor authentication when everything else is multi-factor? And with legacy local domain joined computers, this allows someone to log in to any computer on your local domain joined computers. I'm simplifying this a little bit, but all a bad actor, internal or external to the company needs is somebody's password, and they can log in as that user from any computer on your Windows Server Active Directory network. And to make matters worse, the possibility of someone stealing a user's password is high when the IT manager has crazy password complexity and unrepeatability requirements, making the passwords easier to be stolen. This was state-of-the-art IT security for the 1990s, which is when I started as a network administrator. But we can do so much better now with modern Microsoft 365 security. And let me take things a step further. I don't know what my Microsoft 365 password is. I haven't known that for years. I don't use passwords to sign into my Windows OS computers and haven't done that for years either. I don't keep track of passwords, password resets, password complexities, coming up with new, slightly different passwords and all of that frustration. It's impossible for me to give out my password to a phishing email scam because I don't know what my password is. Like my iPhone, I usually sign in with my face through my webcam on my laptop or even my desktop computer. And if there's some type of lighting issue and my webcam can't pick up my face scan, I enter in a 6-digit, simple, unchanging PIN code that only I know. I've never written down anywhere because it's easy to remember but hard to guess. That only works for me specifically on a specific computer using security technology that is included with my Windows computer and my Microsoft 365 license. And I'm going to get into more detail on that. But for now, if the users on your company computer network also didn't know their Microsoft 365 Entra ID passwords, and as a result, can't give out their passwords to phishing email scams, yet they could log in securely using multi-factor authentication at the Windows OS console login level, using their face or their fingerprint or a simple, unchanging, easy to remember, hard to guess PIN code that only they know and they don't have to write down, and their passwords were never transmitted over the internet, would this make your IT system more secure or less secure? Would this make your IT work life as a manager better or worse? Well, of course, the answer is it would make your IT system more secure. Of course, your work life as an IT manager would be far better. What if the computers were also encrypted with BitLocker? What if the users could only log in with verified company-owned and managed computers that meet a basic compliance policy, such as a policy requiring MFA at the login and disk encryption and Microsoft Defender EDR enforced through Microsoft Entra ID at sign-in? Again, of course, the answer is your IT system would be so much quieter, smoother, drama-free, and cost far less to maintain. And for IT managers, don't get triggered by the cost less to maintain as a threat to your career. The irony is that if you have Microsoft 365 XDR security and management skills, your value in the marketplace increases and your opportunities increase. They only decrease if you bury your head in the sand and don't learn the modern cloud-based IT security management skills, and we can help you with that. Now, a small percentage of you have addressed this by adding Duo for multi-factor authentication at the Windows OS console login to increase security on your network, which sincerely, and I'm not being sarcastic because I don't care for sarcasm, I commend you for being proactive and forward thinking. I mean it. Now, that being said, and this might get some of you triggered, so I'm going to ask my editor to put up the trigger warning. But likely, you're wasting company money paying for Duo when Windows Hello for Business, a competing service to Duo, is already included with your Microsoft 365 license that you're paying for, but you're not using. And I see this all the time. And look, we're on the same side. It's just you and I talking right now. Your boss isn't around. One of the things I like to do as an MSP that only integrates, sells, and supports Microsoft 365 cloud services, as an IT guy that has dedicated my life to Microsoft 365, is to help IT managers get beyond not knowing what they don't know. Internal IT managers are stretched super thin, are considered overhead in the company. They're not revenue generators in the company's books, are not given a proper training pathway, usually don't have Microsoft 365 project engineers in-house to work with or escalate things to. And they buy their Microsoft 365 licenses from large resellers that don't understand the cloud services in those licenses and can't help them fully integrate a properly configured Microsoft 365 cloud services system for emails, files, phones, security, and device management. And the IT manager's boss is usually not an IT person. Their boss or their boss's boss is usually the chief financial officer. I get it. I'm one of you. I was an internal IT manager in the beginning of my career. So if you're still watching this video and not triggered typing in the comments yet, cool, let's proceed. Again, I don't know what my Microsoft 365 password is. And clearly, as the owner of a cloud MSP that has hundreds of clients, I'm a juicy target. But I sleep easy because I use modern Microsoft 365 security. And again, I couldn't tell you what my password is. If you want to log in as me, you're going to need my face or my finger which is kind of dark, or you're going to need my PIN code, which I've never written down anywhere or told anyone. Again, it's hard to guess, but easy for me to remember. But that's not all. You will still also need my specific computer that my face, fingerprint, or PIN code was registered with, and that holds a unique computer-specific private passkey for me specifically. And that does not leave the computer. So good luck, you're not getting in. And even then, if you were to get my face, my fingerprint, or threaten me to give up my PIN, you're going to need to rob my house or rob me to get my computer. And even then, I have a Microsoft 365 E5 security system, the best IT security system that Microsoft makes, which is going to see suspicious behavior and block access to that computer when you take it. Which ultimately means it would be easier for a cyber criminal to skip me and target you and your company because you and your company are far softer and easier targets. I use Windows Hello for Business to access my Microsoft 365 cloud services and data through my computer without a password. And before I go into Windows Hello for Business, it's important for me to note that in our Microsoft 365 cloud services practice at Cerillion, we set up client computers to be Entra ID joined using at least Entra ID Premium Plan 1 and enrolled and managed through Microsoft Intune and secured using the Microsoft Defender XDR Coordinated Threat Protection System. I talk more in detail about that in this video here. Now, let's get back to Windows Hello for Business. Windows Hello is different than Windows Hello for Business. Windows Hello allows me to sign into and unlock my Windows OS computer with my face, my fingerprint, or a PIN code in the same way you sign into and unlock your smartphone. Windows Hello on its own does not allow me to sign into my Microsoft 365 cloud services. This is where Windows Hello for Business comes in. Windows Hello for Business uses a public-private key pair combination to validate my identity through my Windows OS computer into my Microsoft 365 Entra ID account. Computers are not automatically set up with Windows Hello for Business. They have to be individually enrolled by a specific user. When you enroll your Windows OS computer into Windows Hello for Business, Windows Hello for Business creates a unique public-private key pair combination that work together to authenticate your identity without using passwords. The private key, known as a passkey, is stored in a special dedicated chip in your computer, the TPM, or Trusted Platform Module chip. The private passkey never leaves that chip. That passkey is unique to that specific user on that specific computer. That passkey does not move with that user to any other devices that user logs in from. That user cannot use their face, fingerprint, or PIN to automatically log into another computer, even if that computer is already Entra ID joined and Intune managed. If that user wants to use the same PIN code, their face, or their fingerprint on another computer, that user will have to enroll that second computer into Windows Hello for Business, even if they plan to use the same PIN. And to complete that enrollment process, they must pass through a separate multi-factor authentication process, which for how we configure our clients means that that user has a registered cell phone number to their Entra ID account and the Microsoft Authenticator app installed for MFA confirmations on that smartphone. In that enrollment process, Windows Hello for Business will create another completely unique public-private key pair combination and store the new private passkey on that second computer, in that computer's TPM chip. While the private passkey is stored on a computer and never leaves it, the paired public key is stored in that user's Microsoft 365 Entra ID account. Now, with my Windows OS computer enrolled into Windows Hello for Business, when I go to my Windows OS computer and sign in with my face using my webcam or my finger using a fingerprint reader or a PIN code, this unlocks my private passkey stored on my computer in the TPM chip. Windows Hello for Business will use that private passkey to sign an encrypted message sent to Microsoft Entra ID. Microsoft Entra ID validates the message against my public key. Once validated, an authentication token is sent back to my computer, and that computer now is able to access my Microsoft 365 email, files, chats, and apps. No passwords were transmitted, and you didn't have to keep re-authenticating to the various Microsoft 365 cloud services while your session is active, which is so much better for the users because, of course, everybody hates having to re-authenticate multi-factor authentication over and over. Windows Hello for Business solves this because Windows Hello for Business is multi-factor authentication. The private passkey stored on your computer is something you have. And the face scan or fingerprint read is something you are. And the PIN is something you know. Hackers and cybercriminals want the passwords to your Microsoft 365 accounts to breach your security remotely. They can't use your face, fingerprint, or PIN codes to access your system remotely. If your users don't know their Microsoft 365 passwords, there's no way the users can give them out. And if a cybercriminal gets a user's PIN somehow, it's useless, as a cybercriminal can't log in remotely with that PIN. To use that PIN, that cybercriminal will also need the specific computer holding the private passkey that PIN works with. This security is so much more powerful than the legacy security of logging into computers that are Windows Server domain joined and that have usernames that are easy to guess and passwords that never change or change frequently, but ultimately are just dated legacy single-factor authentication. And if someone has your computer and is trying to guess your PIN, that bad actor will only be allowed to attempt a PIN a few times before being slowed down with anti-hammering services built into that TPM chip, such as forcing the user to enter a specific string of characters to continue, or having the option to enter a PIN completely removed, or having to reboot the computer and start all over again. Both desktops as well as laptops are well protected with Windows Hello for Business, though again, 99% of the computers companies purchase anymore are laptops. I'd order your laptops with infrared in the webcam, which is usually noted as IR webcam in the specs or description. Signing into and unlocking your computer with your face like you do with your smartphone is so nice. It makes signing into a computer with a username and password seem so old-fashioned. For desktop computers, my recommendation would be order webcams that work with Windows Hello for Business, which means they need to have infrared. And you can find those as cheap as $30 on Amazon. They're nothing exotic. And I would also try to get laptops that have a fingerprint reader built into them on the keyboard as a backup to the webcam. I have that on my own laptop and I'm glad it's there, though I rarely use it. You can also add fingerprint readers that slide nicely into the USB ports on the side of the laptop as well. For desktop computers, USB fingerprint readers that work with Windows Hello for Business are as cheap as $25. We set up Windows Hello for Business along with conditional access policies around management through Microsoft Intune as part of a full Microsoft XDR security and management configuration. For that, we use specific Microsoft 365 licenses. Microsoft 365 Business Premium, Microsoft 365 E5, and Microsoft 365 F1. And let me tell you, for those of you that have those licenses, that's a good start, as that means we don't have to have a talk about a budget increase to upgrade your existing licenses. But most of you are just using those licenses for email and the Office desktop apps and are usually just poking around with Microsoft Intune. I see that all the time. And look, there's no judgment here. Again, internal IT managers are stretched super thin and they tread water just keeping the existing IT system hunkering along. Moving to MFA at the Windows OS login and moving to passwordless sign-in is a mind shift for most IT managers. IT managers are used to Windows OS computers that are set up to allow users to log in with a username and password from any computer connected to the network and not using MFA at the Windows OS console login level. And IT managers sometimes still have really dated concepts about passwords, like changing passwords frequently on a routine basis or making passwords super complex and unrepeatable, which just causes the users to start writing those passwords down, sometimes in their smartphones, which ironically, the smartphones are better protected than your Windows OS computers because the smartphones are protected with biometric sign-ins using a face scan, fingerprint read, or a PIN code. And isn't that nuts that security on your personal smartphones are more secure than the security on your Windows OS computers on your corporate computer network? And here's what's even crazier. When it comes to the cost and complexity of setting all of this up, when we set up a complete Microsoft 365 security and management system for a client, that part of the project usually runs around $8,000 to $10,000 one time and can be fully implemented within about 30 days. And specifically, setting up the back end for Windows Hello for Business, one of the most effective security configurations and modernizations you can do for your IT system, that specific component is about $300. We configure the backend. The IT manager just then has to go around and roll the computers into Windows Hello for Business. And you don't need a Microsoft 365 project engineer for that. Happy to do if you need us and you're short on staff or don't have an IT staff, but it only takes about 15 minutes per user. And frankly, putting in this type of modern IT security is just so much more interesting, so much more inspiring from an IT career perspective than 1990s IT security using Windows Server usernames and passwords managed by Windows Server domain controllers. And while I have you thinking about this right now, it's important to know that Windows Hello for Business also works seamlessly with Windows 365 Cloud PCs, which is the virtual desktop service that we implement as part of our Microsoft 365 practice these days, which I talk about extensively and demoed in this video here. And if you make the transition to a complete Microsoft 365 XDR security management, IT managers can utilize Copilot for security, where they can chat with their IT security system. And I'll talk more about that in a future video. So if you're still with me and you're interested to talk with us about doing a proper, complete, modern integration of Microsoft 365 for email, files, phone, security, and device management, and going all Microsoft and all Microsoft Cloud services and getting rid of all servers, physical or virtual, or as close as that as you can get with heavily certified, heavily experienced, humble, and pleasant project engineers that have worked with us for a long time and a friendly support team behind them, you can go to our website, Zerillion.com, check us out. And if you want to speak with us, you can fill out our contact form or give us a call to set up a meeting. We work with for-profit private companies in the US and Canada with between 30 to 200 users that are not in IT. If that's you, we'd love to talk with you. Microsoft 365 integration, support, and sales is all we do at Zerillion. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.